Hello and welcome to WION World as One, broadcasting live from the British capital. This hour, you're with me, Katie Pilbeam. Let's get to the headlines. Nepal PM meets Indian PM Modi in Delhi. This engagement comes as part of the official four-day visit to India, aimed at bolstering the long-standing and friendly relationship between the two nations. A dashboard camera captures dramatic moment when part of missile falls next to a car, driving on a road to Kyiv. Russia continues to strike Ukrainian capital. 3 people are killed in the latest air attack. European leaders head to Moldova for a summit close to Ukraine's borders in a show of support for both countries. Zelensky is the first of more than 40 leaders to arrive for the crucial meeting. A new camera in town that defies the norms of conventional photography. Instead of relying on a lens, it uses artificial intelligence instead and GPS data to take the pictures. World number 3, Novak Djokovic, brushed aside the furore surrounding his comments about the clashes in Kosovo by reaching the 3rd round of the French Open and says he won't shy away from raising his opinion again.
It had such a high intensity, but once Djokovic was able to nick it, well, he was tested tonight, but Novak Djokovic passes the test with flying.
Hello and welcome to the programme. It is day 2 of the NATO informal meeting of foreign ministers in Norway. Ukraine and Sweden's impending membership of the alliance are key issues that will be discussed in these meetings. Well, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg also made a statement pushing for Sweden's membership in the alliance and pushing for a personal appeal to Turkey's establishment for allowing Sweden's membership.
Sweden is now integrating more and more into NATO structures, our military structures, our civilian structures, and several allies also provided bilateral security assurances for Sweden. So it's absolutely inconceivable that there will be any threat or any attack against Sweden without NATO reacting. I will travel to Ankara in the near future, exactly when is not yet decided.
Meanwhile, talking about Sweden joining the treaty, Norway's foreign minister said it must happen before the July summit set to be held in Lithuania.
I have raised it several times when I had a meeting with the Turkish foreign minister. He can unfortunately not come to this meeting because there is going to be an opening session of the Turkish parliament on Thursday. But I have raised this several times. And Sweden fulfills all the criteria. So there is absolutely no reason for holding Sweden back.
Well, on the other hand, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg will be giving a joint statement with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, according to the US State Department, Blinken's trip is largely focused on discussing allies and how to build Ukraine's defense and deterrence capabilities.
We are partners in trying to find peace in areas of conflict. That remains vitally important. And again, here in Europe, the solidarity that we have shown with other European partners in defense of Ukraine and against the Russian aggression, I think has been absolutely remarkable.
Well, back in Washington, President Joe Biden has approved a new package of military aid for Ukraine that totals up to $300 million. It includes additional munitions for drones and an array of other weapons.
We will use that package that we're announcing today to provide Ukraine with additional munitions for Patriot air defense systems, which Ukraine has been deploying quite effectively, as well as more Avenger air defense systems, Stinger anti-aircraft systems, and ammunition, of course, for the HIMARS, artillery, and anti-armor systems that the United States continues to provide to Ukraine.
Well, several members of the NATO alliance have been pushing for narrowing the divide between countries over Ukraine's membership of the alliance. Well, for more on this, our diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, joins us live from Oslo. Siddhant, good to see you. Okay, I'm presuming you can hear me well. Just bring us up to date as to the latest as to what's going on there in Norway, if you would.
Well, good to see you as well. I'm standing in front of the Oslo City Hall, where the NATO foreign ministers are meeting right now, even as we speak. And of course, focus, has been on the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict that dominates the agenda here, and that is something that has stunned the European capitals and completely changed how Europeans look at security architecture in the region. But essentially, the focus remains as to how the NATO countries can send a message to Russia, even as they prepare for the summit in Lithuania. There's no key outcomes expected from this meeting that takes place here today, but it will help provide that informal exchanges between the foreign ministers as to how to deal with the ongoing conflict in Europe. But also on the table is the expansion of the grouping. Today we saw the foreign ministers of several countries doing doorstep interviews, including, of course, the NATO SD. And the focus remains on Sweden's membership for the grouping. We know Turkey has been resisting its membership, and now the NATO SD will be traveling to Ankara, hoping that that could be changed. But essentially on the table also remains issues like Kosovo and also situation in the Indo-Pacific, even as the Chinese president has said that prepare for the worst. So will there be another front in the global geopolitics that can be a point of tension, is something that is being discussed and, of course, debated.
Okay, Siddhant Sibal, thank you so much indeed, our diplomatic correspondent there in Oslo, keeping us up to date. You will be on WION throughout the day if any developments do occur. Thank you so much. Now, moving straight on to the drama over former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his WhatsApp chats and diary entries. Well, this continues. So while on the one hand, the former Tory leader's spokesperson insists that chats related to the Partygate scandal are with the cabinet, questions are being raised as to why officials in the UK government are denying having these chats in their possession. So Johnson has been urging the Cabinet Office to hand the material to the Inquiry Commission. The Rishi Sunak-led government has so far refused to hand over the material. Now, recently it claimed that it does not even have the material with them. A Johnson spokesperson has added that the former Prime Minister will hand over the material directly to the inquiry panel if it's inquired to do so, or if the panel asks them to. Well, both the COVID inquiry panel and the Cabinet Office are considering legal action to protect their own interest. The inquiry panel warns that if the UK government does not hand over the material, it will seek legal assistance. Or, on the other hand, the UK Cabinet Office says it will take legal action to prevent the handover of WhatsApp messages and these 24 notebooks. Now, the Cabinet Office claims that the panel has no right to ask for such material. However, Inquiry Chairperson Heather Hallett says what's relevant or not falls under her job title, not the government's. Now, some senior Tory leaders have urged the UK government to stand down as they don't want to see the party strangled in a legal battle with an independent inquiry panel. The opposition party, Labour, has accused the Tories of a cover-up. Now, similarly, opposition Liberal Democrats have also urged Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to submit the vital material requested. Now, amid this tussle between the inquiry panel and the government, the main question remains unanswered. If Boris Johnson himself is willing to hand over the material, why is the UK government reluctant to follow? And how much political leverage is Johnson looking to gain from all of this, as many Tory backbenchers still view him as a top contender for the next general election? Right, well, to answer that exact question, we do have Nicholas Nugent with us now, a senior journalist and former BBC editor, live from London. So, Nicholas, that is the question, isn't it? Why, if Boris Johnson himself is willing to hand over the material, why is the UK government reluctant to do so?
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to give you a straight answer to that question, but what's going on is a sort of exercise in power play at the highest level. Let's just backtrack. A year ago, Boris Johnson, still Prime Minister, was under a lot of pressure to set up an inquiry to investigate how the government handled the COVID situation. And he bowed to the pressure and he set that up, an official commission of inquiry under Baroness Hallett. Now the inquiry is ready to start its work and Boris Johnson is no longer Prime Minister. The inquiry are demanding quite a lot of inside information, all these WhatsApp exchanges. And at first, Boris Johnson himself was resistant to do that. He didn't want his private messaging between fellow ministers and others to be exposed to the public, because once it has been revealed to the Commission of Inquiry, they have the right to publish it. It's in the public domain. But he's changed his tune now. He wants to be a good guy because, as you mentioned, he's hoping to return to high office. So suddenly he said, yeah, it's okay with him. He's handed it over to the Cabinet Office, but it's up to them. It's up to the Cabinet Office. The Cabinet Office being essentially the bureaucracy surrounding the Prime Minister. So the decision is left to the Prime Minister of the moment, Rishi Sunak, as to whether to reveal these documents. And here we have another principle of government, which is about how open are government communications. Should they be exposed? Should they be completely transparent? Or shouldn't members of the government have the right to message each other in confidence before taking decisions, which is quite an important principle of government. I mean, we have reasonably open government, but we don't automatically see those exchanges going on. So the Cabinet Office or the Prime Minister's office are having to make that decision. And the law appears to be on the side of the Commission of Inquiry, in that the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, Baroness Hallett, a former High Court judge, a very senior figure, she has the right to decide what is relevant and what is not relevant to her inquiry. So the Cabinet Office's line that much of these exchanges are irrelevant doesn't hold water, really. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way it's going to go. We will see later today. The deadline is in about 6 hours from now. And if the documents haven't been handed over, that's when we expect it to go to law, go to the courts. And as I've said, the rights appear to be with the Commission of Inquiry, in that the government are required to respond to her demands. After all, we were pushing a year ago for a very open inquiry, a very thorough inquiry, and that's what Baroness Hallett appears to be set to deliver, and she is requiring these WhatsApp exchanges.
OK, Nicholas, thank you so much indeed for your expertise. As always, as you say, Boris Johnson has changed his tune, as you call it, and is willing to give over these WhatsApp messages. That's Nicholas Nugent there, senior journalist and former BBC editor, live from London. Thank you. Well, let's stay with British politics, shall we, for now, because the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is set to address the European leaders on the migrant issue today. And several leaders from Europe are gathering in Moldova for a border security summit. But a meet focused on Ukraine, Sunak, he seeks a chance to talk about the migrant issues. So the focus will be on Ukraine, but he wants to talk about the migrant issues in Europe. Now, this comes as the Labour Party has revealed figures that show the amount spent on the asylum system in the UK has increased from £550 million in 2012 to £2.1 billion in 2021. Now, according to reports, the figure is expected to increase. Last week, the UK government announced the asylum backlog has reached a new record of 173,000. The European political community in Moldova, a brainchild of French President Emmanuel Macron, was created to form a platform for unity across the European front. The EPC, as it's called, will bring together the leaders from the 27 EU member states and 19 other countries, including the UK, Ukraine and Turkey. Now, meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Moldova. He was greeted by Moldova's president. He also claimed that Ukraine is ready for NATO membership. Well, for more, our London correspondent Alex Isaac is joining us live from London. So, as expected, the Ukraine issue is expected to be top of the agenda for all of the countries that are joining there. But of course, Sunak is very eager to talk about the migrant issue because people at home are expecting him to do so.
Well, absolutely. Of course, the war on Ukraine is a never-ending conversation until that does get finished. And it doesn't seem to be that is heading towards that direction at the moment. But Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, does really want to be pushing this idea that he can fix this migrant situation that has been occurring within the UK. You mentioned some really high figures there. Of course, we have heard about the amount of spending that has gone on housing the migrants that come over to the country, also with the border force as well. And what we do understand is that there is even more money that's taken out of the trade deal from the UK and our financial aid that goes overseas. We're expecting to hear some more high-rising figures, potentially £2.4 billion being spent on housing migrants and also making sure that the borders are kept safe. But many people in the UK will be asking, is that quite happening right now? Because they keep seeing more and more come across the channel on boats, but also legal asylum seekers as well. Let's not forget, it's not all about these illegal people that are coming over, but it is about those that are coming over legally. Now, what Rishi Sunak is going to be talking about in Moldova is not just about Moldova itself, but also the Balkan region. He's also working with Bulgaria and Georgia to try and smash some of these smuggling rings, which are one of the key problems when it comes to illegal migrants coming over to the UK. He wants to stop it where it's happening, and he wants to work with those Balkan countries to try and figure out how to do that going forward. But of course, he has a long way to go at the moment. There has been quite a slowdown on trying to send people back. Obviously, the Rwanda plan has not really come into fruition yet, and nothing seems to be moving forward, which he needs to do quite quickly. Rishi Sunak's one of 5 promises was that he was going to deal with this particular issue, and it doesn't feel like he's moved that far forward. Having discussions is all well and good, but there was a lot of money that went over to France to try and patrol those borders, and a lot of people within the UK, the public here, are wondering where that money has gone. Where is that overseas aid actually going, and how is it fixing the problem? Of course, again, as I keep mentioning, we have an election not coming up in the long-term future, so Labour is holding on to these figures, but they also haven't suggested themselves exactly what they would do in this situation, because whoever gets in next year in the general election, whether it's a continued Conservative party or a new type of party, they will need to fix this problem too. It's not going to get sorted overnight, and moving forward with these Balkan countries, smashing smuggling rings is one of the steps, but it will be seeing how it comes together. Words are great, but it does need to be put into action.
Yeah, quite right. Thank you so much. And as we say, the amount spent on the asylum system in the UK is now spiralling into the billions. And we've got that meeting in Moldova with the UK and EU members, as well as Ukraine and Turkey as well. Alex Isaac in London, thank you so much. Well, we're going to move on and talk about some entertainment now, because Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has left fans extremely excited since the trailer came out. The movie is scheduled to hit screens in the US on the 2nd of June, but it is being released in India today, a day before the official US release. Now, the directors are calling it a special gift for the Indian fans. More details in our next report.
My My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man.
The wait is finally over. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is out in Indian theatres.
The whole thing was his idea.
The latest movie in the Spider-Man franchise has released in the South Asian country in 10 different languages.
You can't run forever, kid.
I can't believe
Indian fans can now go and watch the film in English, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Gujarati, Marathi, Punjabi and Bengali. Set over a year after the events of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the story revolves around Miles Morales, who is approached by his love interest, Gwen Stacy, to save every universe that has a Spider-Man or a spider persona.
What are you doing?
Audiences will get to see many iterations of Marvel's iconic hero, including Pavitra Prabhakar.
A new guy.
My name is Pavitra Prabhakar. I live in the best possible Spider-Man city, Mumbai. This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
The Indian Spider-Man has been on the Marvel comic series since 2004, but this is the first big screen outing. The character is voiced by Indian-American actor Karan Soni in English. And the Hindi and Punjabi dubs are done by Indian cricketer Shubman Gill. Spider-Man has been among the most popular and most loved superheroes across the globe. After the massive success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in 2018, the masses are all set to get engrossed in the new dimensions of the Spider-Verse again. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
It looks great. I can't wait to see it myself when it opens up here in the UK. Thank you so much for your company. You've been with me, Katie Pilbeam, here in London for WION World is One. Stay with the channel. The international news coming up shortly.
WION, now.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
From the second launch pad at Satish Dhawan Space Center, today's launch will be the 4th launch of ISRO this year.
2, 1, 0.
As we speak from the second launch pad of Satish Dhawan Space Center, this is a vehicle that's carrying NVS-01, a second generation navigation satellite of India. This is a satellite that meant to help India for navigation related purposes, navigation, timing and positioning.
Big story on WION, World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other